cost of home prices nowadays, and we are putting together a little show today about how sometimes we don't have enough money to do all the things we want to do and meet all of our financial goals, buy the house we want, all of that kind of stuff. Generally speaking, there's a couple of things that you can do when there's just not enough money to go around. One is to decrease spending, and one is to increase your income. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that second one, which is really just making more money, which is an option a lot of times, especially for physicians, because there's so many ways that you can potentially increase your income in that line of work. So we're going to spend a bit of time talking about that today. We'll talk a little bit about contract negotiation, kind of side hustles, making a little bit more in your existing position, all of that kind of stuff. So Corey, you want to take it away for us?
Yeah. I think for a lot of you listening, increasing your income is probably easier to do than decreasing your spending. Once that lifestyle creep sets in, you get accustomed to this certain level of expectations. It's really hard to take a step backward and go down. It's hard to go from eating top ramen to eating steak and lobster to then go back to eating top ramen. It just doesn't happen very often in our experience. So in order to achieve the financial goals you want to achieve or accelerate your path towards financial independence, increasing your income might be a consideration worth pursuing. So a number of things that you can do to increase your income. Probably won't cover everything today, but first and foremost, if you don't want to consider working more or moving or taking on additional side hustles, one thing you could consider is just contract negotiation. Let's see if we can negotiate more pay through our current job or for your job that you're pursuing. This especially starts right out of the gates. Once you start looking at jobs as an attending, you're finishing up residency or fellowship, looking at contract offers, start negotiating right there. Ask for more money. Worst they can tell you is no. Now you got to be careful, and you don't want to offend them and be a little outlandish with your requests, but it doesn't hurt to try and negotiate higher compensation. Now, there's plenty of resources out there to figure out what is a fair or competitive rate based on your specialty, where you're living geographically. There's numerous agencies out there you can employ to help negotiate contracts for you. But beyond just the salary, you can negotiate sign-on bonuses, retention bonuses, student loan repayment assistance. If it's a hospital, there's probably only so much you can do on the benefit side of things, but maybe on the private practice side, you might be able to work out something on the retirement contributions. And really don't underestimate the power of renegotiating your contracts too. Maybe you sign your initial agreement, it's a 2-year contract or 3-year contract, whatever. When you're coming up for renewal, really start to prepare yourself and gather all the data you can, get records of RVUs you produced or billing history, anything that can help your case and showing your worth, saying, hey, company, hey, hospital, here's what I've done for you. Now, what are you going to do for me? Let's see if we can get my salary up to be a little bit more in line with the production level that I'm bringing to the table here. So, it definitely is costly to replace you. So, they'd probably rather pay you a couple extra bucks than let you go and find a new doctor that they have to vet and get credentialed and everything. So definitely use those contract renewal dates to your advantage to try and negotiate higher compensation. But Rachelle, anything else you can think of there?
No, I do think that's a really big one, and one that people sometimes underestimate is not just that initial negotiation, but the ongoing negotiation, especially if you learn that a colleague is making more than you, like, you better be asking for more money. Or if you are doing really well in your position, you are now a proven employee. Like, you have done a good job, you can continue to do a good job, and whoever they might need to hire next is not proven to them. Like, they might find a good candidate, but it might not work out very well at all. And it is very, very, very costly to bring on new people generally. So definitely, keep that in mind as you go through your career. It's not just right off the bat. It's every step along the way that you could potentially be making sure that you're compensated fairly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do to boost the income is just trade your time for money. Work extra shifts. Try and do more cases, procedures. Depending on your specialty, this may be more flexible or feasible, and depending on the place that you're working too. But you could take call pay. I know some older doctors who actually will pay the younger doctors to take their call for them because they don't want to get called at night. So if you're young and hungry and are willing to do that, you could definitely find some ways to pick up some extra shifts. I think, again, depending on the specialty, like ER docs are a classic example. Maybe with your contract, you're required to work 12 shifts a month. Which is perfect. You could do that. You have your days off and enjoy time, or maybe you work 15 shifts per month, pick up an extra 3 per month. That's a 25% boost in income, assuming you're paid the same for every shift. So you could definitely pick up a little bit here and there to boost your earnings. On the RVU side of things, if you're paid on an RVU basis or have some sort of compensation tied to RVUs, really make sure you're documenting everything that you're doing in the EMR system so you can capture all your available RVUs for each patient you're seeing. And now we have to be careful here, make sure you're being ethical and you're recommending appropriate treatments and procedures for your patients. I've heard stories of doctors out there that might be recommending things that pay them higher RVUs, but may not be the most appropriate course of action for that patient. So don't be one of those, but definitely make sure you're documenting everything correctly and maximizing that RVU. Or if you're on a collections based model, just make sure you're getting as many collections as you can. Make sure the billing department is on top of it. If you're in private practice, really keep an eye on the billing team, making sure they're doing as much as they can for you. If you're outsourcing your billing to an outside company, make sure that they're doing a good job, and don't be afraid to consider other companies if you feel like you could make some improvements on the collection side. So that's huge. Having a good medical biller on your team is an invaluable person or group of people to have. But anything else on that one, Rachelle?
No, I mean, I think it's all about making sure, the time you do spend at work, you're being fairly compensated for, and that's all just about recording everything, especially if you are paid based on production. I think a lot of times people just don't do a great job of that paperwork. And obviously that's going to be really important. There are also like lots of other things you can do outside of your primary job to potentially earn more, like lots of little side hustles, shall we say. I actually have a client who has an Instagram and gets paid endorsements on her Instagram for doing things, which is very cool because she's the coolest. And why would someone not pay her to say that their skincare product is great or whatever it is? Yeah, so there's stuff like that you can do, especially if you become more influential. You can do like expert witness for MedLegal cases, review court cases. You can testify in court. That's something you want to do. A lot of times, like attorneys hire people specifically for those kinds of things, and you can set your own rates. You can tell them like what you want to be paid, and if you name an outlandish price, be able to find someone else, but you'd be surprised at what they're willing to pay sometimes. I know there's lots of writing and speaking engagements sometimes for medical professionals, and that can be a really good resource. There's also like people who do locum stuff outside of their primary job. Like, maybe they want to do some traveling too. So I have clients who work full time and then also, once in a while they do a weekend gig off in some other city or something like that. And those can pay a lot. It's pretty surprising. And I think that might be something that's maybe unique to the time that we're in right now, just because doctors are so in high demand in some places. But I think that while that's an option, you can take advantage of it. I know there's a few other ones that you had written down here too, Corey. You want to go into some of those ones?
Sure. I think one is, on the insurance side of things, insurance companies need physicians often to review claims to see whether or not they're justifiable. This often comes into play if a procedure is necessary versus elective, and if all the different criteria have been met. And I'm sure you guys have horror stories dealing with insurance companies. There's all sorts of hoops that they require the customers or patients in your case to jump through before they can be eligible for certain procedures. Well, no, you can't just go to a doctor and have that procedure. First, you have to see your primary care doctor. Then they have to refer you to another doctor who then tries this treatment. And if that treatment doesn't work after 30 days, then you can do this procedure. So it's a big scam out there, these insurance companies, but they will employ doctors to review cases. And you could even be a part-time medical director at some of these companies and review insurance cases. And it's not necessarily a full-time job. It could really just be a few hours a week, honestly. So that could be something that you explore or consider looking into. One of the nice things with any of these gigs that you do, if you're operating as an independent contractor, if you're doing speaking engagements, writing articles, etc., doing the expert witness stuff, most of that is in a salaried role. It's most likely just going to be paid to you as 1099 income. With any of that independent contractor income, you can actually set up tax favorable retirement accounts to funnel that income into. Like you could set up a SEP IRA or a solo 401k and make pre-tax contributions. A certain percentage of your earnings can go into those plans. If you're really earning a lot, you could even add a cash balance plan on top of that. There's a lot of cool things you can do as an independent contractor from a tax advantage retirement savings side of things. So definitely some ways to accelerate that path towards financial independence if you can get some income on the side. What else we
Absolutely.
got, Rachelle?
Yeah, I think that, sometimes you might be in a position where you have your primary job and it's just not working out and you're not being paid accordingly and they do not want to pay you more. If that's the case, if it's not like a job that you love and you are willing to give up good chunks of money for, you shouldn't stay. Like you probably should be looking for another higher paying job that will pay you what you're worth and so you're appropriately compensated for your time and can work towards these goals. So definitely, be willing to revisit that periodically, make sure that you are being paid appropriately. And then if you aren't, you can look around where you are now. But I think another thing that you can also consider is the concept of geographic arbitrage, which we've talked about before. It's just the idea that you can go to a lower cost of living area where physicians are likely in higher demand, and you can get paid more and pay less to live, pay less for your house, pay less for like every service that you might need. And it makes a huge difference in your overall cash flow because you have more money coming in and less money going out, which means that all of that extra money you can use for other things. And this is probably not a solution that works for everyone. Like not everyone is willing to pick up and move to North Dakota or Kentucky or wherever it is. But I think for some people, especially if it's just, for 5-6 years, it might be a good solution to do that while maybe you're young and you don't necessarily have as many obligations, and make a good chunk of money while the getting is good. So there's a lot of different examples about you can live in Los Angeles and you can make a good amount of money. You can make, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 per year. But let's say like you're making $600,000 per year in LA, like that can still be pretty challenging to buy a house and put your kids through school and all of that kind of stuff. And when we were running some calculations ahead of this, basically like you could move to Kansas City, Missouri, and you would only need like $389,000 of income to basically equal that $600,000 of income in LA to replicate the same standard of living. So dramatically less money, but in reality, it's more like you'll probably earn still at least $600,000 in Kansas City or more, and that's the equivalent of almost $1 million in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of things about doing that can work really, really, really well for people if it's something that you can do. And again, it doesn't have to be a long-term thing. It can be something that you do for a few years.
For sure. Yeah, I've had some clients do that for a few years, especially early on in their careers. Hey, let's go work in a low cost of living area, get a high paycheck, pay off the student loans, and then go back to the city that you ultimately want to be in long term. But and it doesn't necessarily have to be middle of nowhere, like, Los Angeles versus Kansas City. Kansas City is a big city. They got a pro football team. Like you can live in a less what's the word? Maybe not a major metropolitan area. Not one of the top 5 markets in America, but still live in a decent sized city. You don't have to live in the sticks. That being said, if you do go find a place in the sticks, you can often get a pretty high paycheck, and your cost of living is nothing. Um, and again, everyone's different. This isn't a viable option for everyone, but you definitely can make more in smaller towns or smaller areas. Like, I've got a family practice doctor in Iowa making about 500,000 a year. And I think the national average or median income for family practice physicians is about 275,000. I know an OBGYN in South Carolina making over $1 million per year. And, the average income is closer to 360, 375 for that specialty. So, case by case, everyone's different. Every market's different. Even within the same city, there's drastically different opportunities with varying compensations available depending on private practice versus hospital versus academic. Even 2 private practices may just operate differently and have different streams of income, whether that be surgery centers, real estate, etc. So, but there definitely are opportunities out there if you're looking for more income and willing to relocate. You could definitely find something that fits that bill. But again, not for everyone. So
Yeah, I definitely feel like the coastal, like West Coast, East Coast, that's where you get paid less. And that's not like all across the board, but generally speaking, I feel like that's pretty true. You can go anywhere in the middle and you can get paid more. Maybe not Chicago. I feel like people in Chicago still don't get paid great, but yeah. Okay. And I think, we can talk about make more money all we want, but really, like, if you make more money and then you just spend more money, you're not doing anything to really achieve any longer term financial goals. And that is the next step, or it needs to be the next step if that's the reason that you're doing it. The reason you're doing this is so that you can make sure that you're in good shape later on in life, or you can put your kids through college. You actually have to start putting that money to work for you. So I think the important thing is, like, as you start to earn more, you set it up so a lot of this stuff happens automatically. Like, you're automatically putting money into retirement savings. You're automatically putting money towards college savings. And it is like an auto debit from your account. It happens every month. And you don't have it sitting in your checking account, or it's like, oh, look at all this extra money I have. We could go on another vacation. And it could be that that's the priority. It could be that the reason you want to make more money is so you can go on more vacations and things like that. And I think that's fine. It's just a matter of trying to be really thoughtful about the choices that you're making and not just doing it.
for sure. Yeah, if we're just making more money and then spending it, you're just running faster on the hamster wheel. You're not going anywhere. Um, we got to make sure we put that extra money to work and use it productively. And whether that be from higher income or decreased expenses or a combination of the two, and make sure we're, like you said, Rachelle, saving for retirement, paying down debts. As expenses come off the books, when childcare costs go away, let's make sure we're putting that couple thousand a month or whatever it was, towards additional retirement savings or towards faster debt payoff. Put those extra freed up dollars to work. When your car loan is paid off, preferably keep driving the used car with no payment and direct your car payment towards something productive. Bonuses are great. Ideally, you structure your life to live on your salary, and then any additional income that comes in is just gravy. So a good rule of thumb that I like with bonus income is a 90-10 rule of thumb. Let's take 10% of our bonus and have fun with it. Enjoy life, treat yourself. If any Parks and Rec fans out there, have some fun, take a vacation, spoil yourself. But with the other 90% of it, let's be productive with it. Put it towards investing for retirement, throw it in the kids' college fund, pay down some debt. If you can just be productive with that extra income and continue to make a habit out of doing that, you'll continue to accelerate your path towards your financial goals. And simple math. You don't need a financial advisor to tell you the more you save for retirement, the sooner you'll be able to retire. The more you put towards
Hmm.
debts, the faster you'll become debt free. It's pretty straightforward there. So if
Absolutely.
you can just keep that mentality and plow forward, good things will come for you.
Yeah. And I know this is the make more money episode, but I think spending less is worth like a second of our time. But it's the idea of like working more, making more money. If you feel like, you're adequately compensated for what you're doing and you're in a good position with your job and you just don't want to put in more work to make more money, look at what you're spending and really like if you're not spending in a way that really aligns well with your values, then let's make some changes. I think that's where that can come in really, really helpful. Like if your goal is you don't want to work a bunch, I think that is also a very valid goal. And I think that if you need to make some changes to how you're managing your finances in order for that to be the thing, I think that is well worth spending a little bit of time thinking about. So for some people, I think working more, making more money is perfect. Like there are people that love to just get out there and grind and like make the world work for them and work for the world and work for money and like make it happen. But yeah, for some people, it can be a lot, and it might make sense to dial back a little bit and take stock of what your priorities are financially.
For sure. Kind of along the lines of making sure your spending is aligned with your values, let's just really sit down and what makes you happy? Where are you most content? For most people, sure, you enjoy going out doing things, spending that cost money, but every time you buy a new gizmo or gadget, is that really improving your happiness meter? If you really just enjoy the outdoors, hiking is free. Sure, you need to buy the shoes and but beyond that, I mean, get a water bottle, shoes, backpack with some snacks in it, and you're good to go. If you whatever you're into, sure, going out to dinner is a great hobby for a lot of people, but you can definitely find some good restaurants for reasonable prices, or maybe if it's just the food that you enjoy with the people that you enjoy being with, maybe it's not the actual restaurant part of it, it's the experience of being with your friends and family. Well, we can find ways to do that without spending $1,000 on a dinner. So really sit down, what makes you content, what makes you happiest. For most people, it's being in control of their time and being able to spend that time with the people they enjoy being with. So uh, finding ways to align your lifestyle, your work, your expenditures with those values, I think can do a lot more than, oh, let's just try and make more money or decrease spending. Let's try and live in alignment with those values, like you said, Rachelle.
I think that's what it's all about, really. I think that if you listen to this podcast, we get all weird and touchy feely a lot. But I think that's what it comes down to is like, money is a tool. And really, it's a tool that hopefully is helping you enjoy your life more. And that's what we want to make sure that we're trying to nail down and pay attention to.
For sure. Well, as always, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, want us to cover something specific. If you like the show, give us a review on Apple Podcasts if you use Apple, which about 60% of you do. We see the data. If you don't like the show, tell us why. Don't write a review though, but tell us directly and we can find ways to improve it. So appreciate it, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.